Okay, this video is an analysis of the S&P 500, and the question we're asking is, historically, how long do you have to wait until you're guaranteed to make money? Because we know there's volatility in the market, it goes up and down, but so sort of it's saying if you wait long enough, it's eventually going to recover and keep going up. So we're looking at how long you have to wait before you're guaranteed for it to go up. And here's a reference of my data source down here. And this guy pulled the data from somebody at Yale that looked pretty credible. Okay, so here is the monthly S&P 500 closing price on a linear scale. Before like the 1970s, it was in the hundreds, so you can't really see it on this scale. It doesn't show up very well. And so let's look at it on a logarithmic scale. Now you can see like into the 40s, it was around $10-ish a share. And then in like the 70s, it was $100-ish. And now it's 4,000-ish. So we see it go up and down. So basically, how long do you have to wait for it to fully recover? So let's look at this. So let's start with the 1-year rate of return. So I'm plotting this monthly, so there's a lot of noise there. So for every year we have 12 samples, and we see it kind of go up and down. And this is a little bit too noisy to make any sense out of. So let's look at 2 years. That's starting to smooth out a little bit. This is looking at the 2-year annualized rate of return. 3 years, we can start to make sense out of it. And so what we mean by a 3-year annualized rate of return is we look at the price now and then the price 3 years ago and say, okay, what percent did it go up? But that's the total 3-year return. And then we annualize it by taking the cube root of it because we're saying it went up that much, that percent each year. And so if we look over here at the far right side of this, we can see from 2011 on, look at the horizontal line through zero, it's above zero. So for the last 10 or 12 years, if you held for 3 years or more, it'd be good. But it also spends a lot of time below zero. So let's keep waiting. Look at the 4-year annualized rate of return. Still spends a lot of time less than zero. 5-year, still back in 2009, 10, 11, you'd have lost money. Now 10-year, now things start to look good, with the exception of like, let's say 2009. So if you had bought in 1999 at a high and sold in 2009, you would have lost money. But anytime after 2011, you'd have made money as long as you held for 10 years. 15 years, now things look really good. Now they stay positive. Let's see. We see that horizontal line through zero. They're positive through the 2011, through 2008, 9, 10, 11. They're even positive in the 70s and 80s. You got to go way back here to the 1940s before you'll have lost money holding the S&P for 15 years. So it's basically saying if you got 15 years, if you don't need your money for 15 years, chances are you're going to make money in the S&P in 15 if you can hold for at least 15 years. There's a lot of history supporting that. But of course, if you go back far enough to the 1940s and 20s, then even holding for 15 years wasn't long enough. 20 years smooths out even more. Same basic story. You got to go back to the 40s until you lose money if you hold for 20 years. 25 years. This is just really for completeness. Same basic story. And 30 years. That's as far back as I went. So we're looking at a long, if you're holding for 30 years, you got long periods of positive growth looking 30 years back. And so now this is just looking at 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30 years all on the same plot. So we can see this is mostly positive, with the exception of 10 years is the dark blue. So 10 years goes negative like in the 2009, 10, 11-ish range. But once you're at 15 years, the brown curve, we see that thing stays positive, until the 40s. So we've got 80 years of positive returns if you're willing to hold for 15 years or more. Now we're sort of just zooming in on the last 40 years. Who knows if that's more or less relevant, but it's closer in time. So for the last 40 years, we see things go up and down for the shorter time periods, and then at 10 years they smooth out. But even at 10 years, it's still dipping negative in 2009. Okay, now we're looking at 7 to 20 years. Here's where we see the transition happen. So for the shorter holdings, let's see, 12 is dark green. Yeah, we see 12 going 0, but then let's see, 13 is dark blue. This horizontal lines, that's the 0 line. So let's see, does dark blue? I guess actually there's one dark blue dot below 0 if you hold for 13 years. So 14 years is the chocolate brownish red thing. That's definitely above 0. So if you hold for 13 or 14 years, you're basically guaranteed to make money. You would have been guaranteed to make money over the last 40 years. Yeah, so this is just showing that over the last 40 years, if you held the S&P for at least 13 years, that pretty much guarantees a positive return. So I guess I made this talk to kind of make myself feel better about the performance of the S&P 500 last year. You know, we really took a bath, like lost over 20% last year. But I'm saying, well, I don't need the money right now. It's in retirement accounts. So as long as I can wait for 13 years, if history is any prediction of the future, which who knows if it is or not, it's likely to come back around within the next 13 years. So hopefully, maybe this makes you feel good, but I guess the real question is to what extent will history repeat itself and versus not. But according to history, if you hold for 13 years, you're guaranteed to make a return on the S&P 500 in the last 4 years. And thank you very much.